two formulas right here. Period and asymptotes. If you remember, asymptotes are the parts that the graph doesn't technically touch. So your period is found by taking pi over b. And remember, b is anything in front of x. The asymptote is pi over 2 times b. Ultimately, you just take the period and divide it by 2. That's all that means. You take the period and cut it in half. So if you look at the graph, your asymptotes would be these two lines out here, and you have a positive and a negative one because you're in a coordinate plane still. And the graph is just in the middle. The only thing we're really concerned about now are finding the period and the asymptotes and being able to label your asymptotes on your graph. That's really all that we have to be able to do. So the period is the length from one asymptote to the other. So this whole thing here is your period. Your asymptote is 1/2 of that. So your asymptote is here, like that. That's why you could just take a period and cut it in half and get your asymptote. So at the bottom of page 26, remember, period is pi over b. So anything in front of x is considered b. So this time you're going to have pi over 4. All right, now if you use your formula, which is perfectly fine, so you've got pi over 2 times b, which is 4. So you've got an asymptote of pi over 8. And you can plug all that directly in your calculator, or you could have taken pi over 4 and divided it by 2. All right, so on the graph, I'm looking for asymptotes. So you've got a negative pi over 8 here and a positive pi over 8 here. And your graph just goes right through the middle. Okay? This time you've got pi over b. So this time anything in front of x is considered that pi over 2. So now I want to simplify that out. So I'm going to put that directly into my calculator. When I hit equals, I get 2. Now remember, your asymptote is just half of that period, so I can take 2 divided by 2, and that gives me an asymptote of 1. So you've got a negative 1 and a positive 1 asymptote. Then you're going to have points at those right there, those 2 points right here, and your graph is just going to go up in the middle of them. Remember, all I'm concerned about are the asymptotes. Okay? Now you've got pi over 1 over 3, everything in front of x. So when I plug that into my calculator, that gives me 3 pi. And your calculator will give you the pi in there. And we're just going to keep it in radians. We don't want to get the decimals and all that stuff, so just keep it 3 pi. We're going to cut that in half. So 3 pi divided by 2 is just 3 pi over 2. So we got a positive, we got a negative asymptote.